Hello and welcome back to the Math 0332 playlist. I'm Mr. Lee. Let's pick up with our next video on order of operations. Many people have heard of this already, and when I asked them, they're like, oh, it's PEMDAS. However, there's a few things and misconceptions we need to clear up before we start. So we'll start with the version that they understand PEMDAS and recognize that it's not really so much like this as much as I like it vertically to let them know multiply and divide and add and subtract are really the same. They're equivalent operations and you do them from left to right. So it's true that you do parentheses, combine any like terms inside parentheses first, and some other things that count as parentheses like large fractional division or absolute value bars. And then you do exponents next. But when you're doing multiplication and division or addition and subtraction, you go from left to right in the order they are there. So parentheses, brackets, absolute value bars, large division signs, these are all things that you need to do before you do the major operation. You apply order of operations inside the parentheses until there's nothing left to simplify. Exponents are handled next. One thing to note is a positive number raised to an exponent should be positive. A negative number raised to an even power will be positive because negative times negative is positive. But a negative number raised to an odd power should end up being negative. Multiplication, like I said earlier, multiplication and division have equal power. You'll do them from left to right. Add and subtract, same thing. So let's just look at, say, number 1. -6 plus 4 times -5. Is there anything to simplify inside parentheses? Well, there are parentheses, but nothing's happening inside. They're just numbers, so no. We have no exponents. You can see what those would look like down here on number 2. So we're going to multiply and divide first. Notice this is a -6 plus a number, but there is multiplication between the 4 times and the -5. So 4 times -5 is -20. So we have -6 plus -20. And then there's no more multiplication or division. So once we're there, we can combine our like terms. So we're adding with the same sign. So this is really -6 plus 20 or -26. Now, looking at number 2, we have a different set of things. Here we can see the parentheses and exponents in play. So when you have parentheses or brackets or anything like that, your goal is to simplify the inside first. So 5 minus 2 is 3. That's still squared, but that parentheses is cleaned up. There's another parentheses, the 2 minus 5, which is -3 squared. And then that cleans up that parentheses. Now the parentheses are done, we'll deal with exponents. 3 squared means 3 times 3, a total of 2 times. So 3 times 3 is 9. -3 squared is -3 times -3, and like mentioned above, when the power is even, this should end up being positive, but -3 times -3 is also 9. So we've finished the exponents there. Now, next thing we have to look for is multiplication and division, but there is no multiplication and division between these two, there's only addition, so we can do 9 plus 9, and that equals 18. So these can get progressively more difficult. We'll look at one on the next page, and then I'll leave one potentially for you to try on your own. Number 4, you can try on your own. It's got a little of everything. But number 3, I just want to look at what's going on. One thing that's important to note, as mentioned, large division bars are like parentheses. And the reason for that, it's like the numerator is in parentheses and the denominator is in parentheses. So when you see large division bars, I would always write in those parentheses to represent that they exist in those places. Okay, so first things first, parentheses. What's happening inside this parentheses? It's 4 squared only. 4 squared is 16. It's also kind of like the whole thing is in parentheses. We'll resolve this before we do anything else. In the denominator parentheses, 6 minus 2 is 4. And we still have this minus -2. Now, even though we said the big division bar is like parentheses, it's also like the whole thing's in parentheses. So it's a little excessive, but sometimes you can write the whole parentheses first. But the idea here is this division is always going to happen no matter what's happening left to right when you have a fraction like that. That thing is assumed to be needed to be cleaned up before anything else. So we'll have 28, then divided by this answer, 16 divided by 4 is 4, minus negative 2. So here we've done our parentheses. I don't see any exponents, so it's about multiplying and dividing left to right. There's only one place where we multiply or divide here. That's with the 28 divided by 4. And 28 divided by 4 is 7. So we'll have 7 minus negative 2. Remember that subtracting a negative is really the same as adding. So you can change this if you would like. And 7 plus 2 also ends up being 9. So that's how this thing simplifies. Like I said, I'm going to leave 4 for you to practice on your own. One thing to note is negative 2 to the third power will be a negative number because that power is odd, so keep that in mind. The exponents will happen first, then the multiplication, then any addition and subtraction from left to right. And we'll pick up more in the next video.